Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 9, Text 23. Prahlad pacifies the Lord with prayers. Drishtamaya divi vibho kila disnyapanam. Dristamaya divi vibho kila disnyapanam. Ayusriyo vibhava ichati yanjano yam. Ayusriyo vibhava. Ye smat pitu kupita hasa vijrambita briv. Yes, ye smat pitu kupita hasa vijrambita briv. Vispur jitena lalita satu te nirasta. Dristamaya divi vibho kila disnyapanam. Ayusriyo vibhava ichati yanyano yam. Ye smat pito kupita hasya vijrambita briv. Ye smat pito kupita hasya vijrambita briv. Vishpuri jetena lalita satu te nirastaha. Drishta have been seen practically. Maya by me. Divi in the higher planetary systems. Vibho, O my Lord. Akila, all. Disnyapanam, of the chiefs of different states or planets. Ayu, the duration of life. Shriya, the opulences. Vibhavaha, glories. Influence. Ichati, desire. Yan, all of which. Jana ayam, these people in general. Yea, all of which. Duration of life, opulence, etc. Asmat pitu, of our father, Hiranyakashipu. Kupita hasa, by his critical laughing when angry. Vijrambita, being expanded. Bru, of the eyebrows. Vishpurijatena, simply by the feature. Lalita, pulled down or finished. Saha, he, my father. Tu, but. Te, by you. Nirastaha, completely vanquished. Translation. My dear Lord, people in general want to be elevated to the higher planetary systems for a long duration of life, opulence, and enjoyment. But I have seen all of these through the activities of my father. When my father was angry and he laughed sarcastically at the demigods, they were immediately vanquished simply by seeing the movement of his eyebrows. Yet my father, who was so powerful, has now been vanquished by you within a moment. Purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Within this material world, one should understand by practical experience the value of material opulence, longevity, and influence. We have actual experience that even on this planet, there have been many great politicians and military commanders like Napoleon, Hitler, Subhash Chandra Bose, and Gandhi. But as soon as their lives were finished, their popularity, influence, and everything else were finished also. Prahlad Maharaj formally gathered the same experience by seeing the activities of Hiranyakashipu, his great father. Therefore, Prahlad Maharaj did not give any importance to anything in this material world. No one can maintain his body or material achievements forever. A Vaishnava can understand that nothing within the material world, not even that which is powerful, opulent, or influential, can endure. At any time, such things may be vanquished. And who can vanquish them? The Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, one should conclusively understand that no one is greater than the Supreme Great. Since the Supreme Great demands Sarva Dharman Parityaja Mamekam Saranam Braja, every intelligent man must agree to this proposal. One must surrender unto the Lord to be saved from the wheel of repeated birth, death, old age, and disease. Okay, we can repeat the translation. My dear Lord, people in general want to be elevated to the higher planetary systems for a long duration of life, opulence and enjoyment. But I have seen all these through the activities of my father. When my father was angry, and he laughed sarcastically at the demigods, they were immediately vanquished simply by seeing the movements of his eyebrows. Yet my father, who is so powerful, has now been vanquished by you within a moment. Amagyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chaksulan Militam Jaina Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jaina Bhutale Swaya Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svabadandikam Vanchakopa Tirubhischa Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So this is very wonderful verse and purport in Bhagavatam. It's especially why I wanted to do the proper verse today, because it comes, of course, to the ultimate conclusion. Sarva Dharman Parityaja Mamekam Saranam Braja. I actually wanted to start the class with an arrival address by Srila Prabhupada. And this won't take long. This was, many of you may have heard this. I don't think anyone has seen the video. I don't believe there's a video of it. But this was a very famous class Srila Prabhupada gave in Atlanta Temple back in the beginning of March 1975. I was very fortunate to attend that class as well, and hopefully it will come up here and you'll be able to hear it through this. So let's see, we'll try. It's actually a very short class, but if you listen very carefully, you'll hear Srila Prabhupada's mood. I find it, listening to Srila Prabhupada's classes, and not just reading them or reading his books, but when you listen to his classes, you can hear Srila Prabhupada's emotion, Prabhupada's intensity, his love for Krishna, and also his urgency in which he speaks. That's what I hear so much when Prabhupada speaks, is the urgency in which he's speaking to us. Because we have a very short duration of life, and you never know, as Prabhupada would say, you never know when that end is going to come. And just like in the description of this verse, imagine, this is Vaishnava. Prahlad Maharaj is a Vaishnava. So he was not bewildered by anything. This is, again, what I got to witness with Srila Prabhupada. He was never bewildered because he was in touch with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He understood that Krishna was in control of everything. So let's try this. I believe I have it right at the right spot. And, okay.
So, I'm very glad to see you, and I'm coming first of all Mexico City. Yes. So, Mexico City, then Caracas, then Miami. I see your temple is the best.
Because your temple is the best.
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is very kind. Parama Karuna Mahadvijana. Two lords, Nitai Gaura Chandra, Nityananda Prabhu and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They are very kind. They have appeared just to reclaim the fallen souls of this age. So, they are more kind than Krishna. Krishna, he is also very kind. He comes to deliver. But Krishna demands the first of all surrender. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu does not demand surrender. He is so hard. So, take shelter of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and be happy. Thank you.
Were you able to understand most? So Prabhupada was so choked up describing the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He said, Krishna is kind, but he's demanding, as he describes here, sir, you must surrender. Sarvadharman Parityaja, you must surrender to me. He said, but Lord Nityananda, he says, the two lords, Parama Karuna Pahudvijana, he describes the two lords. He says they're so merciful. They don't require surrender. Simply you chant Hare Krishna. So this came, and when Prabhupada was speaking in the beginning, he said, we've traveled. This was a very amazing trip. Again, I was with Srila Prabhupada at this time. So in 2 months, Prabhupada traveled around the world, and he stopped in about 14 temples. So he started out in Juhu, his office, he describes as his office, and then he went to Japan, Hawaii, Los Angeles, Mexico City, then Caracas, and that's what he describes. We were in Caracas, and he's looking at me and saying, and then I said, Miami, he said, yes, Miami. He said, and now here. And he sees the deities, Gaur-Nitai. But he also saw them in Miami, and he saw them in Caracas. He saw Radha Krishna and Gaur-Nitai in Mexico City. So this was 1975, 10 years later, 10 years after arriving in the USA. And my experience, I cannot speak of Prabhupada's experience, but my experience was seeing him. His ecstasy was just leaking out. It was coming out more and more in this trip. And each place he went to, he was actually giving very similar classes. Most of them lasted half an hour or so. This one was 2 minutes. 2 minutes, he couldn't speak anymore after 2 minutes. He was just overwhelmed in ecstasy, in emotion for Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda. And he started crying. And then he just said, "Thank you very much." And it was on this trip of 2 months, he went into ecstasy in the Vyasa-san 4 different times in the course of 2 months. It was the only 4 times. I was with Prabhupada 2.5 years. So these were the 4 times I saw Prabhupada go into ecstasy. Because he was seeing what had happened in the course of 10 years. All of his hard work, his whole lifetime, as we say, in preparation. But at least in the last 10, 15, 20 years, this is what Prabhupada was working towards. This is what he wanted to see happen. This is what everyone thought couldn't happen. They say they thought it was just some poetry, every town and village. It wasn't really going to happen. How could it ever happen that this mantra would be spread to every town and village? So they were thinking, it sounds very nice. We see in Shastra, we read Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita. It's very beautiful, very poetic. But it doesn't mean everything is going to happen. How could that happen? But Prabhupada, as he was traveling, Mexico City, hundreds of devotees sitting in the temple room. Not just children like us. Parents of the children were in there. Mexican, very pious people. And then he went to Caracas, and again, hundreds of devotees chanting Hare Krishna. And he said, he looked at Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda on the altar. He said, "They've traveled very far to be with you." This is how Prabhupada saw it. They've come very far. Of course, we know Srila Prabhupada traveled so far. He was doing all of this work. He's more merciful than Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda. This is Srila Prabhupada. So as he was traveling from place to place, he was distributing this storehouse of ecstasy, of mercy of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda. And he was becoming increasingly overwhelmed as he went. In Caracas also, he stopped for a minute. Here in Atlanta, he just closed his eyes. And just like here, this many hundreds of devotees, a few hundred devotees sitting in the temple room. You didn't hear a sound. Didn't hear anyone moving their japa beads, nothing, because all eyes were on Srila Prabhupada. We saw this is the person who's come here from the spiritual world to deliver Krishna, to deliver Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So everyone, you would barely breathe, because it was very special moments that Prabhupada gave us. These were the moments like this that could carry a devotee for his entire life, seeing this possibility of becoming Krishna conscious. I know personally, I was in such illusion at that time, still in illusion, even more so. But at that time I was in such illusion that because of the way Prabhupada spoke, I thought I was going to be Krishna conscious just like that. He convinced us of that we could be Krishna conscious in a moment, this very lifetime. He made you realize that. He made you think that way. Because he always encouraged us. There was one morning walk in Mayapur. There's many morning walks, but this one particular morning walk, I always say Mayapur is a place of its own, just like Vrindavan is. Vrindavan, we say there's no place like home. There's one very famous movie as a child. We heard this mantra from one young girl, there's no place like home. She actually said it 3 times. We know 3 times, that's like the special effect, emphasis. So she said that, there's no place like home, there's no place like home. No place like home. I feel like that here in Vrindavan. And I say that even Srila Prabhupada, he brought Vrindavan all over the world. Every town and village, he's delivered Vrindavan. He's taken Vrindavan, Krishna from here in Vrindavan, and he's brought him everywhere. But still, this is Vrindavan. And when I come here, I feel like I'm home. I hadn't been here for 3 years. But when I arrived here and I came to the program in the morning, I felt like I had just been here the day before. It was like nothing else existed. It all just disappeared all that time. So this is the Dham. This is Vrindavan Dham. So Mayapur Dham, also very special place. And so many things would happen in Mayapur when I was with Srila Prabhupada that I never saw anywhere else. And seeing Prabhupada in Mayapur, if you look at the many photos, you'll see of Prabhupada in different temples, in his room, in different places. You'll never see him look more relaxed than when he's lying back in his asan in Mayapur, in his rooms in Mayapur. When he got there, he just, I don't know what it was. One time when he arrived there the very first time, and he walked out to the veranda. This was the second trip there, and the Lotus building was finished, almost finished, and he was sitting in his room, but he walked right through the rooms and walked to the back veranda, and he just stared out, just looking. I don't know what he saw. I saw nothing but rice paddies everywhere, with little paths in between. For miles, that's all there was. With a little temple here, Gaudiya Mat temple here, one there, off in the distance. Otherwise, it was just vacant land. But he would chant and he would look out. So the one time he went out and he turned to me and he said, "So, Shrutakirti Maharaj." That was his sense of humor. Prabhupada had a very wonderful sense of humor. He said, "So, Shrutakirti Maharaj, how do you like it here in Mayapur?" So, of course, very nice, Srila Prabhupada. Yes, he said, it's very nice here. So Prabhupada loved it so much there. But also when the devotees would come, by this time 74, 75, huge amount of devotees were coming, hundreds. 75 festival, 500 devotees were there. 95% were all from Western countries. We're all Prabhupada's white elephants. And he said to us that we could become Krishna conscious in this very lifetime. He never said we had to take birth in India next lifetime to become Krishna conscious. He never said that. I hear these things sometimes and I think, where does this come from? Who started this philosophy? Definitely didn't start in the West. But this philosophy is there, but this is not the philosophy. This is not the philosophy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So in this one morning walk, the devotees, they were criticizing. And they were talking to Prabhupada as well, saying about difficulties that were going on here and there in this temple. This person is doing this person is doing that. Mayapur seemed to bring out very special flavor again and again. So as the walk was going on, and Prabhupada, he just, as he did very often when devotees would speak, he just remained silent, and just listening in the walk. And finally he just stopped. And he stuck his cane in the ground. And he said, "All you do is discourage." He said, "I've come to encourage everyone." He said, "And simply you're discouraging." He said, "But I've come to encourage." And this is what Srila Prabhupada did. He didn't make it seem like this process of surrender was a difficult process. He encouraged us from wherever we were, whatever position we were. He encouraged us. And by that encouragement, we were all sure we could be Krishna conscious. He made us know we could be Krishna conscious. just as he was Krishna conscious all the time. And this is our business. I'm a guest here in Vrindavan. I'm not a resident. Someday I hope to reside in Vrindavan, the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, Srimati Radharani. But right now I'm a visitor, I come here. And so many of us come here as visitors. Why do we come here? To become encouraged in our Krishna consciousness. We don't come here for any other reason. And I do feel encouraged overall. But I do see it as those who are residents here, your duty is to encourage us fallen souls that come here. Not to make us feel unworthy, not worthy to be in Vrindavan, but to welcome us to Vrindavan. This is a duty of the devotees living here. Doesn't always happen. But this is the duty. Just as Srila Prabhupada always encouraged, as he said, don't be discouraging. Simply by a glance. Look what's described here. The power of Hiranyakashipu. He just raised his eyebrows in such a way that he decimated everyone. They were all gone just by his look. Such a powerful person. But what did Prahlad Maharaj see? Boom, he was vanquished in a second. By Lord Nrsingadev, by the Supreme Personality. In 1 second he was gone. So this is how a Vaishnava sees things. He's not perplexed. He's not bewildered. He's not fearful. He's not in anxiety. He's always happy. He's always content. He knows Krishna's in control, and I'm simply his servant. This was how Prabhupada saw things. So back to Atlanta. Prabhupada simply sitting in ecstasy. And no one would do anything. We didn't chant. We didn't chant kirtan. We didn't start a kirtan because we didn't want to break this very special moments. Maybe it was 30 seconds. Maybe it was 1 minute. It seemed like it could be an hour just sitting there in that way. And of course, because Prabhupada was in ecstasy, everyone was in ecstasy. That flood, that's what a flood does. Like a tsunami, you can't help but be taken in. So this is what Prabhupada gave us. And then finally, opened his eyes, and he just said, chant Hare Krishna, which is what he always said, chant Hare Krishna. So then kirtan, ecstatic kirtan would begin. As I said, in Caracas was the same thing. Miami, the same thing. They had Gaur-Nitai deities at that time, not Radha Krishna deities. And he said, someday, he said, perhaps you'll have Radha Krishna deities, you'll worship Radha Krishna here. He said, but if you do, he said, then you must be very careful, right? Not to make offenses. He said, but Lord Nityananda, Lord Chaitanya, they're very, very merciful. He said, they don't accept any offense. He said, and he said, if you don't have Radha Krishna, he said, Radha Krishna is there in Lord Chaitanya. So see, always encouraged. He didn't say something that made you, oh, geez, we don't have Radha Krishna. No, that wasn't his style. Somehow or other, he knew how to encourage everyone. Individually, he could encourage you individually and say things that he wouldn't say to anyone else. Sometimes we take those statements. Well, Prabhupada said this, Prabhupada said that. Well, yes, but sometimes he spoke to individuals. But when there were hundreds in the temple room, whatever he spoke to, he touched everyone. This is Vaishnava. This is the pure devotee. Because he doesn't wish any harm to anyone. Once in a social network a few weeks ago, someone put on that what we need to do is love whatever Prabhupada loves and hate whoever Prabhupada hates. So I I had never responded to, but I saw it, and I just saw that Prabhupada and hate in the same sentence, and I thought, that just doesn't seem, I never saw Prabhupada hating anyone, you know. And I said, I didn't know Prabhupada hated anyone. And then Govinda Dasi, my god sister, got on, and she said the same thing. Neither did I. And then he put on there, well, the Mayavadis. But then he put a quote on there saying, he found a quote, Veda base, you can do anything with Veda base to support your argument. So he found the quote, Prabhupada didn't say Prabhupada, it said that the devotee hates the idea of merging into the Brahmajyoti. Now, I didn't respond anymore, but I thought, well, that's not a person. We're talking about the Brahmajyoti now. So the idea that Prabhupada hated any individual was just so foreign to me, because I just saw him always doing whatever he could to bring someone to Krishna consciousness. I saw him with devotees that had come to see him. One devotee, it was here in India, I believe it was in Hyderabad, in like 1974. And he had been a sannyasi, one of Prabhupada's sannyasis, and he left. He was already gone by 74. But he was wearing bright orange, red colors. And he came in, Brahmananda was his secretary at that time. And he just came in and started blabbering all kinds. I don't even know what he was talking. He was doing all these mudras and things in front of Prabhupada. And he was clearly intoxicated. And Prabhupada tried speaking with him, but couldn't get through to him. So then he continued in his ways, and Prabhupada just said, looked at Brahmananda, said, remove him. Because he didn't want him to make any offenses to him. It wasn't a punishment. He was trying to save him. See, encouragement can come in different ways as well. Huh? Like we say, Prabhupada, like the thunderbolt, we say in the rose. But both features are there. Prabhupada wasn't just a rose all the time, but neither was he a thunderbolt all the time. Got to understand that. Sometimes I see some devotees are always like thunderbolts, they're always banging over the head. Sometimes you have to deliver the rose as well. With me, Prabhupada was always giving me the rose because he knew thunderbolt I would die. I'd die in a second. But he did have a look he could give me. Just like this look, I'd be petrified. He got to know me so well, he didn't even have to open his mouth to chastise me. He would just look at me. And I would just see, you fool, you nonsense, you rascal, in that look. And then that was it. Then we would go on to the next thing. Chastisement was over. And the chastisement was literally over. Didn't come up again and again and again on the same thing. Back 20 years ago you did this. No, that was not Prabhupada's mood. Prabhupada was in now. He was always in the present. Always encouraging us in every way. But he did have a look. Many saw the look in a very special, sweet way, just like in the class. Prabhupada looked at me. So many, you would hear devotees say, he saw right through me, saw right to my soul. But he saw a pure soul. He didn't see a black soul. That was not his business, was to look at everyone's fallen condition. No, he saw that spark in there that he could make grow in Krishna consciousness. So we're supposed to become Prabhupada-like, not Prabhupada. We're not going to be Prabhupada. We're not going to be the same as Prabhupada. But he wanted his disciples, and all of us as grand disciples, our business, he said, is do what I'm doing. Do as I'm doing. This was, if you read his letters to GBC, he'll always say, do just like I'm doing. That's your business. That's the business of devotees. To become like that. To purify ourselves. To encourage others in Krishna consciousness. We have no other business. And when we do that, our Krishna consciousness, that spark grows, that flame can grow bigger. But by discouraging others, by criticizing others, you're not going to make it grow. It's not going to happen that way. So Prabhupada traveled from there. He went from Atlanta. Then, I think he stopped in New York. He went to England. In England, at the Bhakti-Vedanta Manor, again he went into ecstasy on the Vyasa-san at the end of class. It was getting to be a habit. And then he stopped in Tehran. And then he went to Mayapur, back to Mayapur, for a big festival, 1975. And he gave his arrival address there. So now he's back home, the home of Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda. He's right there. And delivering just wonderful, powerful classes and seeing that ecstasy Prabhupada had in seeing Krishna consciousness had been spread all over the world. Imagine. I can't even understand what he thought, what he felt, what he experienced. But the ecstasy was overwhelming and it was just slipping out of him. So there in Mayapur it happened again on the Vyasa-san. This is in the course of just 3 weeks. What an amazing time to be with him, to see this experience. So again he went into ecstasy. And like I said, 500 devotees in the temple room, and devotees behind them around the Vyasa-san. Then there's one sannyasi was behind, and Prabhupada's there, and everyone, hundreds of devotees, no one's moving, and you're Nama Om Vishnu Padai. So kirtan began. Prabhupada's eyes opened up, and he joined into the kirtan. So then kirtan went on for 10, 15 minutes, everyone jumping up and down in ecstasy. Another feature I heard, when you heard that 2-minute class, how many children did you hear in that temple room, speaking, talking, running around? Prabhupada didn't say anything. He just went on with the class. So these things existed in that time. Children running around during the kirtans. They were there in the kirtans. Once someone suggested to Prabhupada, there's a letter saying, children, they should be banned from class. Prabhupada said, no. He said they can hear. They can hear. Of course, they should be controlled by their parents, but if they can sit nicely and listen, pay attention, they should be there. Even in the womb, they can hear. This is always giving Krishna. This was Prabhupada's mood, never discouraging anyone. He always managed to make everything work. So after this kirtan in Mayapur, we were then leaving, myself, Brahmananda Maharaj. I was with Prabhupada. We're walking up the stairs, and Brahmananda Maharaj, he was talking to the other devotees because a big discussion. As I say, Mayapur is a very interesting place. It could have happened anywhere, but Mayapur was a special place. So they're arguing. Why did you start kirtan? Prabhupada was in ecstasy. We should have just let him do it. Even if it was for an hour, we should have just sat there and let him be in ecstasy. No, of course, then there was the other party. Now we see these parties, they always exist. Always arguments. We can argue about anything. We're so expert. So the other party say, no, Prabhupada always says, chant Hare Krishna. Whenever it happens, he says, chant Hare Krishna, so we should chant Hare Krishna. Anyway, we don't know what answers to anything. We never knew. But we had our Prabhupada card. We'd just go ask Prabhupada. That was how we solved all our problems. Ask Prabhupada. So Prabhupada's in his room. I go outside. Brahmananda, he's outside. Come on, he says. We go into Prabhupada's room, offer obeisances. And he says, Prabhupada. He says, we're having discussion. You know, when you're on the Vyasa-san and you go into ecstasy, what should we do? should we chant? Should we not chant? And Prabhupada looking like, you silly boys, why are you asking me such? And he said, I don't do that very often. That was his response. I don't do it very often, he said. Yes, Prabhupada, when it does happen, now we're already invested. And I'm not speaking. I never asked such questions. I was way too shy and way too fearful of being chastised for silly questions. So I would just sit quietly and like the fly on the wall. And Prabhupada, chant Hare Krishna, whatever. He just dismissed it, But this is what we were like, huh? Children in Krishna consciousness. We needed everything. We needed to hear everything, the answer to all our questions. And what a facility it was to have Srila Prabhupada present to answer all of our questions. What a wonderful time. Of course, he says all those answers are there for all of us, by reading his books. But reading his books or not, the one thing I've understood by being with Srila Prabhupada is he always encouraged everyone, no matter how fallen we were, no matter how fallen we had become from our previous elevated position as a devotee, fallen down to the most fallen condition. I've told the story many times in New York when he went there, back at 55th Street. They had the restaurant on the ground floor, and Prabhupada arrived, and there was a sannyasi who was not following any principles. He was so fallen. Of course, some of us would take pleasure in describing such things. He's really out of it. Got long hair, beard, even eating meat. He was even offending Prabhupada, accusing him of ruining his opportunity to become a rock star in his 20s, because I gave my 20s to Prabhupada, and I missed my opportunity to be a big rock star. So devotees wouldn't even associate with him, except for one Mataji, she was a little more compassionate. But he liked prasadam. Even though everything else had gone away, he would come and eat prasadam. So he was there. Prabhupada's arriving in his limousine, the big sannyasis in the car, the sidewalk, wide sidewalk in New York City, and 100 devotees out. And he said, why is everybody outside? I said, Prabhupada's coming. He said, oh, I just came to eat. And then Prabhupada shows up, and the doors open. Everybody hits the ground. Dandavats on the ground. Others are jumping up and down kirtan. And they're trying to direct Prabhupada away from this fallen sannyasi. I don't know, maybe they contaminate Prabhupada. Who knows what we were thinking. And of course, Prabhupada saw him immediately. And he just walked right towards him. And they're trying to lean him towards the temple room door. And he walks right to him. And he says, so, you'll cook for me while I'm here? And Maharaj is with Prabhupada. He's eating meat, and he's offensive to you. Prabhupada doesn't hear anything. Prabhupada, if he didn't want to hear, you could talk to him all. He didn't hear anything you said. So again, Prabhupada looked him right in the eye. So, you'll cook for me while I'm here? Yes, Prabhupada, he said. Very nice, he said. So this was Prabhupada's way of discouraging this person, as everyone else had done, discouraging him because he was such a fallen, offensive rascal. He encouraged him, please cook for me. Where did we come from? Many of you probably come from very elevated status, especially those of you born here in India, born in devotee families now. But I came from a very fallen condition. And he encouraged me from the beginning. The devotees encouraged me to take up this process. So what's the only remedy if we fall down is, again, to take up the process. Engage people in devotional service somehow or other. This is our duty. This is how we make progress in Krishna consciousness. This is the best way to progress in Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada said those devotees advance. He said, you preach to the devotees. They can go outside and preach. He said, but keep those that are here, keep them safe, keep them happy, Keep them in Krishna consciousness. So it's, there's a few minutes left. I know personally, class goes past 9 o'clock, I start getting very uneasy. Because prasadam, just like that fallen sannyasi, he's still attracted to prasadam. It's my one attraction is prasadam. So I don't want anyone to be late for prasadam. But anyone has any questions or comments, please? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So just like somebody has done some fault, he has stolen some money from the temple and he has this one, and can we reject that person or we can welcome him again?
Well, that's a very special circumstance. I was talking with someone this morning too, and I was saying back in the 70s, when Prabhupada was here, he would talk about these imitation devotees, these people that would described in Chaitanya Charitamrita as well. These people that come, they're not devotees, even they're dressed, they have the tilak, shaved head, proper cloth, dhoti, very nice, everything. He said, but they're not devotees. And at that time, of course, as Westerners, we were all coming, we were leaving everything to become devotees. We left money, we left nice houses, we left our cars, our girlfriends, whatever it may be, to become devotees. But now, fast forwarding 40, 50 years, we have very beautiful temples, and you can have people that come here just for facility, actually not devotees. So we have to guard against, we have to discriminate too, who is devotee, who is not devotee. Back in those days, sometimes people also took money, took things. Prabhupada was very merciful to them as well, but they were devotees. Because sometimes things would happen. One classic case was in Hawaii, where 1971, devotee sold the temple, took the money, gave back a deposit that somebody had given, and the rest of the money he took, went to a different island, bought a farm. So 4 years later, 1975, he was still there. He had his farm, everything. And I was Prabhupada's servant at the time. And, excuse me, I was there at the time. And Prabhupada traveled from Oahu, which was where the temple was, Honolulu, the main temple. He wanted to go to the Big Island on the pretext of seeing our ISKCON farm on that island. And Guru Kripa, who was the GBC, my GBC, I was at the time, he went with Prabhupada alone. He wanted to be with Prabhupada alone. He said he didn't want that servant in between him and Prabhupada. So of course, I got a little upset and jealous because I was always right there. But anyway, I remained in Hawaii. So Prabhupada got to the island, the Big Island. He had no interest in seeing the ISKCON farm. He said, can you find the devotee? He wanted to see his devotee who had been there since 1967, traveling with him. And of course, they couldn't locate him at that time. And Prabhupada just came back. He never even went to the farm on ISKCON. That's not what he wanted to do. He wanted to speak with this devotee. So then a few weeks went by, and they finally contacted him, and he came to see Prabhupada. And this was at our center now that Ambarish Prabhu purchased for Prabhupada in 1974. And Prabhupada was in his room, wonderful room, beautiful temple, beautiful island. And I'm massaging Prabhupada, and he walked in. Another devotee, long hair and beard, and very deep eyes, almost like Karanyakashipu kind of eyes, maybe, a very Scorpio, very deep set, dark eyes. And he sat down, and again, I couldn't even understand what he was saying. He was just talking these things, and I don't know whether he was intoxicated or what, and Prabhupada was trying to talk with him, and he just remained silent. And Prabhupada said, what have I done that made you leave? He said, what? is there something I've done? He said, that caused you to go away? Because there was no talk about money. There was talk that he left the society. And Prabhupada had tears in his eyes, saying, is there anything I can do? Tell me, is there something I can do so that you come back? He said, if I've done something, he said, tell me. So this was Prabhupada's attitude with this devotee. And he didn't say anything. And I'm thinking, she's missing out so much. And then finally Prabhupada said, okay, you can go. It was obvious, nothing was happening, he wasn't talking. So he left. And I'm behind Prabhupada massaging him. And he said, he is a big rascal. He said, but I love him. In 1977, when I was here with Prabhupada in September, he came. He had a new wife, and Prabhupada initiated her. He was so happy to see that he had come back to see him. And that was Prabhupada. Who can understand how Prabhupada does things? But it's definitely not our business to pick out a certain event and think we should do like this. Prabhupada was like this. Prabhupada condemned this person. Prabhupada was... Well, we can't understand the mind of a pure devotee. But Prabhupada saw everything he had done. He was a devotee who had spent years helping Srila Prabhupada, opened up temples, traveled with him. So Prabhupada saw his service. This is what the devotee sees. He sees your service. If one's not doing any service and just a cheater, that's another thing. But for these people that came, they did everything. Prabhupada saw them develop this society. He didn't take credit for himself. He saw that these devotees, these Brahmanandas and Gargamunis and others, we can have so many feelings about them. But these are the devotees, why you're here. The Guru Kripas. We can see, criticize this person's doing this one's doing that. But Prabhupada just saw they did so much service, and that's what he recognized. I want to be in that group. I don't want to be in the other group. Somehow or other, you just need to do some service. And amongst ourselves, it means to encourage one another. Not that somebody walks by and you give them this dirty look. Sometimes I think, what did I do? I hardly know this person. They look at me like Hiranyakashipu, like they just want to burn me. And I'm thinking, what did I didn't even do anything. I've done many things, maybe to many people, and made many offenses. I don't know anything I did, but I'm even afraid to say anything. Such a look, I get anxiety, and I just smile, Hare Krishna. Yeah. One more question? Comment? Hare Krishna.
Many temples, ISKCON temple around the world have don't have the Prabhupada rule, but minor offense, they check the devotee out of the temple. So I think the temple president or who are occupying those seats, they should be taught to be in the Prabhupada rules. For minor offenses, they should not show the devotee. My request, humble request to you is that you should encourage temple president or tell them that I'm
trying. One of the reasons I feel like I should be here. This class today, that was my whole wish was to bring up this idea of encouraging. This is in surrender. We have to encourage. Surrender is, it's a very difficult process. Surrendering, giving up everything we've had for millions of lifetimes. This desire to enjoy. Had to surrender that desire is a difficult thing. It's a process. But those who are more surrendered, they can encourage. This temple functions here very, very nicely. Panchagoda. Didn't want to mention anyone. He does, over the last 7 years I've come here, I see amazing things that have happened. Managing is not an easy thing. When in 75, when the temple president in Hawaii. He left. He embezzled some money. And myself, Paramahamsa, who was his secretary at the time, Nitai was Sanskrit editor, we were all close in age, and we were close together. So they said, well, maybe Shrutakirti can be president. And Prabhupada just smiled. He said, he's too easygoing. So temple president is not an easygoing person. You have to be a little firm, which I think you have such a temple president here. He's able to, he's like no nonsense, and he doesn't, he's very direct. He's very good. I think he's very good in so many ways. None of us here are perfect. Like I said, none of us that I see, are like Prabhupada in every way. Prabhupada was the entire gem. Devotees have different facets, some more than others, some less than others, but everyone has some good qualities there. That's why we're here. But I'm hoping by your prayers, mercy, benediction, I'm hoping to come back Janmashtami time, settle down here, make this my home, and then from here I can travel to other temples. I don't have a lot to offer, but on this basis of just saying what Prabhupada, my experience with Prabhupada, that's all I can share with others. I think that's my duty to do as much as I can, and I hope I present it nicely without interfering with my own concepts as much as possible. So anyway, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.